Today's video is being brought to you with help from G Fuel, one of the most popular energy supplements on the market, known for providing fuel for the focus of a new generation of gamers, creators, students, and athletes. Made with top-tier ingredients, their sugar-free formulas give you the energy, focus, and endurance you need to power through your daily tasks. And if you are interested in getting your hands on some, either to try it out for the first time and see if it's right for you, or to resupply your favorite flavor and are looking for a bit of a discount, please use the code TheDsIEGE and get 20% off your next purchase, while at the same time supporting this channel and helping me continue to create the content you've all come to enjoy. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested, and thank you in advance for any who choose to purchase using my code. I very much appreciate your support. Without further ado, on to the featured presentation.
It is with the greatest of risk that I commit this recording. The codices within reveal the hidden weakness of your most feared enemy. My creations, my frames of war. What led us here? You did, you vile blasphemies. Machines thinking, breeding. You were to bear us a new, promised land. But when you arrived at that distant world, you knew that in time, we would bring ruin to it as well, as we had to Earth. And so it was, we came to war. I give you now the coordinates and codes to this place, but do not underestimate these devils on how they did what we could not. A miracle. But all miracles require sacrifice.
Hey all, Siege here, and today we continue on with our examination into the new war as a whole, with observations and some interesting possibilities presenting themselves with the information we now understand about the new war and Duviri in hindsight. This time we'll be looking at another major aspect within the new war's developing narrative, and that's the Jovian Concord as well as the Erra Cinematic. It might not have seemed like it at the time, but these updates brought with them some very important content story-wise, though not much in the way of an actual presented narrative, with one just being a somewhat confusing cutscene. However, without the events of the Jovian Concord, Ballast's overall plan would have never had a chance for victory, reinforcing much of what we experienced up till now, that he remains one step ahead, and perhaps a considerable bit more if looked at from a particular perspective. Now, the amalgamation of Ballast portrayed during the Chimera prologue would in fact be a precursor to what we would see during the Jovian Concord, where the sentients, now seeming more organized as well as possessing a specific agenda, visit Jupiter. Alad V, always looking for a way back into the graces of the Corpus board, and especially prone to succumb to a shady deal should the payout be agreeable, is conveniently enough visited by a former acquaintance with a proposition, and in his haste and overall greed, Alad fails to understand what's actually happening until it's far too late, as told in the fragments found on Jupiter, giving us the truth behind this partnership.
Things have never been this bad. The currents are strengthening in that rank cesspool of a board. Anyo has consolidated his power on Venus, winning Fraud Beck's favor. All eyes are turning towards their new darling. And the currents would drag me down. I am underestimated. I am unseen. I must turn that to my advantage. I seek advantage, and advantage appears. I'd long thought that old fool Regus dead, but here he is, rich and gullible as ever, with an offer of shared wealth. Says he has tech like I've never seen, old war tech. And he wants an investor. Oh, I'll invest all right. This is about more than investment. Regus surprises me. How a man of his limited intellect can buy such wonders is... But forget that. What he has is exceptionally viable. Where did he find this technology? It stinks of Tau. But the advantages to be had in the exploitation of it. The things I could create. The profits I could accrue. The board will never dare underestimate me again. Regus' price was high, but I dangled the board's most enticing intellectual property, Syscon, to seal the deal. Then I placed a contract, loaded with escape clauses and loopholes, in that slack idiot's fingers. And he signed. The fool signed without even reading it. Any partner that thick is a liability. A liability soon to be nullified. Regus has changed. Or perhaps he is not such a fool. And today I saw beneath the mask. He is no longer so agreeable. Rather, he came to our meeting with a raft of his own radical proposals. An entire shift in direction. And then, as I made to leave, he smiled. He smiled, and just for a second, I don't think his face was human at all. This is all wrong. I'm tearing up the contract. I have a terrible feeling that if I do not escape this partnership immediately, I never will. That was not Regus. It never was Regus. It revealed its true face to me, and by the void, I've entered into a partnership with sentience. The world builders, the world killers, our enemy under all. This contract is worthless. Instead, they demand submission. CT, assemble the disciples, arm the condors. Those oversized crustaceans have no idea who they're dealing with. That did not go as planned. Thousands against one. That massive grotesque tore through my forces like a shark through a shoal. We never inflicted so much as a scratch. Now it perches outside my home. The message is clear. I am to make amalgams. And if I cross them, the Roparu list makes an ash cloud of this city. If my rivals find out, I'll be executed for treason. What choice do I have but to comply? Disciples, good news. The Amalgam program has entered into a fruitful partnership. Pursuant to our agreement, their identities will be kept confidential, and a strict no-fly zone shall be instated around their craft. In time, the nature of our project will be made known. Until then, know that we work for a brighter Corpus future. Life is profit.
As of the making of this video, it's still unclear as to who this person actually was, aside from it not being the person Aladvi originally knew, and forcing him into a partnership with the Sentients. But we never get any true confirmation of who he is definitively. Although it's possible, and maybe even probable, that this is just another mimic created by the Lotus, I've yet to encounter one in-game that camouflages itself as a human with the ability to negotiate with what would have to be a stolen voice, allowing the ruse to fool Alad so convincingly, and I believe it has to be at least questioned if there isn't another group of sentients we have yet to encounter with this skill, or that maybe we've already met them and just don't know it. Of course, we have met one entity that in fact can do this exact thing, and if we consider all this in hindsight, with Ballas being the face of the Narmer Crusade and the Man in the Wall's influence within the Prelude to War, this may in fact suggest that he and the Man in the Wall have some kind of connection or maybe even agreement in place? It's hard to say, but given Ballas' longevity, his involvement in Void technologies, his knowledge of the Tenno and their struggle with whatever the Man in the Wall is, forcing the use of transference to stop the initial voices the Tenno were struggling with, and the fact that they both seem to be leading the Tenno directly into the new war, more specifically to kill the Lotus, does beg to question if Ballas had his own interactions with the Indifferents, and, well, if anyone could convince an entity to join his cause, it would be Ballas. Curiously enough, emerging as the de facto ruler of Narmer, a group of sentients being led by an Orcan. If that doesn't prove him to be the obvious conductor of the orchestra of deceit the new war emphatically becomes, a world born on lies based on fear, well, I don't know what does. Regardless, The sentients appear to have taken what they did to Ballas and utilized Alad's contingency as a breeding ground for a new type of sentient hybrid, the purposes of which are twofold. First, these new iterations of sentients are supposed to be able to shed their previous weaknesses, which most likely refers to the flaw, a failsafe added to the sentients during their initial creation that would interfere with their ability to replicate, something that Lotus explained during the Nata quest.
All missions to the Origin system required a sacrifice. Me and my kind become barren when crossing the gap. It is the one flaw we never overcame.
But also, it interferes with their ability to adapt. Now, it's well known to us that the sentient enemies we face are problematic, mainly due to their resilience based on adapting to whatever they are being attacked with. And it's in this context where the Orokin originally felt they would be safe in their creation and utilization, something we will dig a bit deeper into later in the video. These newest sentient creations also had a second, potentially more important function though, and that was to test the capabilities of the Tenno and figure out some method by which they could be nullified. As we'll come to find out in the very near future, they are in fact successful. However, once the Tenno realize what the stakes of this game are, they attempt to confront the creature holding this Corpus sect hostage, the Ropalolist, believing that if Alad was freed of its presence, he might reconsider the continued existence of this project. And along the way, they're actually contacted by the Lotus herself.
Our history is smoke, blurred by dreams, guided by ghosts. A voice, a void, lurks inside you, its purpose not yet shown. But what am I? My father was a farmer, my mother, a carpenter, given light by the Golden Lords to build for them a better world. But my family's journey was long. Time began to change their light. Creativity, pride, a will to live. So the Golden Wrath came, and after, I was born. A mimic, a spy. Conceived to burrow into nests and swallow the pitch eggs of their war machine, the Tenno. But when I saw the tender faces, I took mercy. Or so we were told. But in truth, we were both imprisoned in Lua's belly. My light remade by the creators. I became a memory, a ghost. Reprogrammed to destroy my family, my people, my history. But now I am saved by family. Together, we will overcome the flaws of our light, the gods of our creation, merging with them like steel, bearing amalgams with the weakness of neither.
Now, I think it's important to acknowledge that her new form doesn't appear to be what she used to look like as a pure sentient, as she still retains most of her human look, aside from her face and visor. And further, the diagram from one of the amalgams used within these fragments looks very similar to how the Lotus now appears, being reinforced during the new war itself when Ballas sends her presumably into the void, but with this suit of sorts going first, most likely suggesting that the form we are shown here was one that was given to reinforce her newly rediscovered history and beliefs, ones she shares with us during the fight with the Ropalolist.
Your great power, your great evil, the voice, the void within you. Our ancients still wither at its touch. But have you forgotten, Lua? You were saved. But I was changed. Now I learn. Now I deny. We suffer these testaments of Tenno evil, their voice and void. Suffer it well, ancient child. Do not relent. Go below us. Rise. Remain. And die for the others to live. I have seen the wall's other face too. I have heard the voice. Rise, ancient Ropalolist, my other flesh. Your sacrifice will breed a new way for a new kind. So it is. So you have done, time and again. Eradicating my people, my history, So it will be with yours, child. I am the witness, the victim, the judge. My family has returned. Your trial, soon to begin.
Nonetheless, we defeat this new flying Eidolon sentient, and are then forced to wait and see what the implications of both it and many of the Amalgams' deaths are leading to. One other thing to keep in mind is that with the manipulations at play, it can't be discounted that either some or all of what the Lotus tells us is untrue, or at least not the whole truth, especially considering what we witness in the very near future.
Let her go.
If I had a heart, it would be broken. If my eyes could weep, I'd be blind. Look at what they've made of you. You're a god. You're a queen. But somehow the bees have you as a hostage. Do you even recognize me anymore?
I recognize the enemy.
No. Sister, it's me, Erra. The Makers caught you, unraveled your mind. They're using you to kill us. The Queen of the Aphids, with her eye in the void. But I don't blame you. I blame them. You believe these are your children, but I am the only family you've got left. So choose our family, our people, or these parasites. Choose, Natah. Choose!
I am not Natah. I am the Lotus.
The imagery we are immediately shown in the Erra Cinematic comes from the Old War. The fight the sentients felt they had to bring to the Orokin to protect both the sanctity of Tau, their new home, as well as get a measure of revenge for the aforementioned flaw, forcing them to stay in Tau or risk its effects, making that area as much of a prison as it was a home to them. Those with a keen eye will notice the appearance of the White Whale, if you will, Excalibur Prime, only available to founders of Warframe, as well as Hunhao appearing in the sky above. Interestingly enough, the Samaris crewman imprint shows us who is most likely responsible for the sentience being utilized in the first place, as well as an explanation regarding the aforementioned flaw, and why it was incorporated into their creation. They opened the chamber door just in time for me to see it happen. the Archimedean erupting into a flash, jade-like and blinding. I knew her. She was the greatest scholar of genetics who had ever lived, except now she was nothing but mist and gore. A voice boomed from within. "The crewman project is cancelled. Send in the next." The rifles at my back tried to urge me inside. Old faces filled the dome's projections, immense and godlike. I walked into the center of the room, and the scorched scent choked my lungs. All around me they watched, bored as I knelt upon the darkened judgment disc. The projection of Executor Ballas swelled large in front of me. I could see his purity, his symmetry, the beauty of his glittering gold irises. His voice thundered. "The principles are clear. Your sentence is death. May the void forgive you." As the judgment disc began to light, I stood, took a deep breath and spoke. "She will not forgive you." Laughter broke out among the faces of the dome. Others asked, "What did he say?" Ballas only smiled. "You challenge us, Archimedean." "I do. Kill me, and the empire you're sworn to uphold dies with me." Ballas turned his head as the judgment disc went suddenly dark. "An appeal comes at a price. Should you fail, you and your Corpus will pay dearly. They already suffer in this growing wasteland. They've already paid. Will you also sacrifice the royal futures by ignoring my solution?" "Your solution is an abomination. Like you, it will be annihilated." Ballas motioned to the guard. "Present the evidence." The chamber doors opened and a mass of guards entered, guns trained inward. As they reached the center, they parted, revealing a small cart. Atop the cart was a motionless creature, no larger than a hand. Its body was symmetrical, star-shaped with a seamless matte black shell. A new projection, that of Executor Tuvul, ballooned into the space.
"It looks harmless."
"Harmless." Ballas boomed in Tuvul's direction. He turned to the center of the dome. "Show them." On command, the guards backed away from the cart and readied their weapons. Their leader took careful aim and fired a whisper round into the body of my creation. Two of the limbs tore off the frame, revealing a glossy, gelatinous interior. Silence gripped the dome as Tuvul shook his head. Then suddenly, the creature moved, convulsed. The hard surface started undulating. In a moment, the wound closed, and the thing was whole again. Beside it, another machine had grown from its severed parts. Their surfaces had changed, however, brighter, harder, resilient to the whisper rounds now. Ballas looked triumphant as voting lights began to appear on the judgment disc. My green death was coming, so I roared at them. Did our ancestors, burned by fire, reject its power? No. They conquered their fear and learned to control it. The 7 principles are a joke. His projection swooped down to me. The Orkin is the law, and the law is the Orkin. We are unbending. Your appeal is denied. Tuvul interrupted.
"Our laws are sacred, but do not forget the plan, Ballas."
His visage turned down to me.
"Countless other ventures have failed the plan. How will this machine fulfill its design?"
I tried to catch my breath and speak. The crossing to the Tau system is perilous. Adaptation and replication are the only way a terraforming journey can be made. They will build an interstellar rail as they travel. They will adapt to the host planet and prepare it for our arrival. They will save you. Tuvul peered down at me.
"And when it completes its task, what will prevent it from turning on us? As the 7 principles say."
The flaw. Tuvul's eyes narrowed.
"The flaw?"
The void is poison to them. Once they've reached Tau, they will be marooned there. To travel the rail here would destroy them. Whatever the risks, the origin system will be... Ballas shouted, "Enough! Dereliction of the law threatens the entire empire. Which one of you will risk this?" Ballas was growing increasingly frustrated. "Empire is already at risk. cried the shrill voice of another executor. Or perhaps you haven't noticed from your cozy position on Mars. To this there was a round of applause, and the judgment disc remained unchanged.
Malice, you lack consensus,
shouted Executor Tuval. His projection seemed to shrink smaller until he finally broke his silence. Archimedean Parental. Against my better judgment, his disgust was palpable. Your appeal has been accepted. You are free to go. One by one, the projections of each executor in the tribunal flickered off, and the guards ushered me into the hall. There I stood, wrapped with shock when I heard his footsteps behind me. You did better than I thought you would. It was Ballas, the man, not the projection. It would seem nobody truly knows they want a thing until you threaten to take it away. He broke into a smile. Wouldn't you agree, Archimedean? Who else but Ballas, revealing himself as a puppet master ages ago, utilizing perhaps his most devious and dangerous ability, calculated misdirection, playing everyone in the room to utilize the Archimedean's creation and persuade the entirety of the ruling body into compromising their own ideals, and even break their own laws, weaponizing both their jealousy and contempt for him, as well as his own perceived arrogance to get what he wants. In my opinion, this passage encapsulates Ballas brilliantly. A man always playing both sides in order to maintain a level of control in every situation he finds himself in. Dangerously meticulous, brilliant, stoic, and patient, reaffirming his formidable and uncompromisingly terrible nature. This passage is also eerily similar to how the Tenno were first utilized as weapons of war.
What they need, Margulis, is to be destroyed. They're devils from that hell, not human anymore.
No, Wallace, no more destruction. We could heal them. Maybe they're meant to save us.
How can you defend these devils, Margulis, after what they've done to you?
Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind. They won't hurt anyone. I just need more time.
With Ballas attempting to act as though he hates the Tenno, denouncing them continuously as devils and almost deemed too dangerous by him, curiously enough, in nearly the exact same way utilized in the crewman imprint passage.
It is with the greatest risk that I commit this recording. The codices within reveal the hidden weakness of your most feared enemy. My creations, my frames of war. We cultured the infestation, conceiving of a hybrid, transformed, but only just. The Helminth was created, born to yield these new warriors, worthy of battle against you, the great and terrible Hunhao. We took our greatest, volunteers or not, and polluted them with these cultured reagents. They transformed. They became infested. But only just. Their skin blossomed into sword steel. Their organs interlinked with untold resilience. Yet their minds were free of the infested madness. Or so we thought. We set them upon the battlefield, biodrones under our command. The Warframes, all of them failures. Surprised? They turned on us, just as you did.
Yes, hurry, Tenno, but be careful. Last time you got close with the sentients, you wiped out an entire civilization. But you don't remember that, do you?
And so we had no choice but to commit them to grave.
Only to be adopted in a very similar, or one might say the same way the sentients were, as tools of the Orokin. But immediately after the battle scene on Lua,
Let her go.
If I had a heart, it would be broken. If my eyes could weep, I'd be blind. Look at what they've made of you. You're a god. You're a queen. But somehow the bees have you as a hostage. Do you even recognize me anymore?
I recognize the enemy.
No. Sister, it's me, Erra. The Makers caught you, unraveled your mind. They're using you to kill us. The Queen of the Aphids, with her eye in the void. But I don't blame you. I blame them. You believe these are your children, but I am the only family you've got left. So choose our family, our people, or these parasites. Choose, Natah! Choose!
I am not Natah. I am the Lotus.
Reformation is accelerating. Our conduits are nearly ready. Our rebirth is at hand.
And the Golden Spear? How many battalions?
Still having lapses. Listen to me. That's the past. The old war. Tell her, Maker.
Yes, there is no spear, no Natah. Erra speaks. Master Erra. He speaks true. The Oracle are gone. The bios are divided. Infighting over what remains. Only the Tenno.
The Tenno. The enemy.
Yes.
Made by you. To kill us.
Yes.
But you have something our people have never had before, Natah. You're stained by their wickedness. Use it. Use their sin against them.
They're listening.
Let them.
They know we are building.
It won't matter.
No, it won't.
So what are you waiting for? Sing for us, sister. Call them home!
we are brought into what appears to be a literal garden of lotus flowers, growing out from deep within the moon, and might indicate that these pods grow directly into the floor above, with the stem appearing very similar to a void portal, much like the one leading directly to the Lotus's original chamber during the Apostasy prologue, as we fall down one of these stems before reaching her. The Void's inclusion as the stem could also explain how all Tenno can access her, regardless where their pods are on Lua, although that is unfortunately just speculation, based on its appearance at least at the moment. Further, when considering the placement of these pods, and specifically that they reside in the former Orcan capital, the Moon, the Margulis implant cutscene experience between missions, as well as Ballas exhibiting some form of control on the Lotus during the New War, I feel show the machinations of Ballas' betrayal against the Orcan in full view here years, perhaps even centuries before the events of the Tenno within the game itself, especially when considering Varzia's presence within the scene. When visiting her at Maru's Bazaar, she confirms that someone had given the keys to the reservoir away.
Kid, I'd trade all this prime gear for a few shards of Seriglass, a hammer, and 5 minutes alone with whatever gilded bastard gave the sentients the key to the reservoir. Erra hurt me, but if you kids hadn't showed up, he'd have killed me. And in my book, that means I owe ya. So, here I am.
She also has another bit of dialogue that, within the Warframe universe, kind of bugs me.
The kicker isn't that you kids brought down an empire. It's that half of you don't remember doing it.
Why will no one tell the Tenno what actually happened? Sure, it's insinuated a bunch of times, with what I believe is even the Lotus trying to help us remove blame at one point.
What you did, you didn't have a choice. Tenno, you were only just a...
Don't do that. Don't make excuses for me.
But in looking at this scene in particular, I can't help but think the lack of any memory of the incident, paired with what we see, might insinuate that when the Tenno destroyed the Orcan governing body, well, let's just say they weren't necessarily the ones in control of the situation, a theme that reappears frequently within the Warframe narrative. Further, Varzia says,
It's that half of you don't remember doing it.
Where are these Tenno that know what happened? Sure, she could just be using an expression, but it insinuates that some Tenno do remember this incident, and it begs to ask, will we ever meet them?
Within the moon lies the reservoir, the secret to your Tenno power. But the secret is dangerous. It drove the Slayer to madness.
And if so, why do some remember while others don't? Overall, there's a lot of suspicious activity in this cutscene to begin with, and we're never really given an explanation on how any of it is possible. First seeing what appears to be the past, with 7 individuals, 5 black-eyed Tenno, the Lotus, and the Man on the Wall, or us, or both of us. If this is all a vision like those of the Narmer Vale, emanating specifically within this incident from the Lotus helmet, it's entirely possible that some of the participants here are being represented by someone else, especially if the idea of all of this is to confuse and influence, which I think is only reinforced at the end of the scene, having us magically transported to what looks like the present, with the Man on the Wall relinquishing control of our body, now conveniently perched within the sentient stronghold to hear a very specific message. We also find Ballas leashed by Erra, with the Lotus discussing the war to come, and his subjugation here, given the solidarity the Lotus, the sentients, and he have during the sacrifice quest, should have been the first indication that something we're seeing doesn't quite make sense. And as before, it begs the question if everything we're witnessing isn't just a carefully crafted manipulation by Ballas, forcing her to speak to us as an adversary potentially even on the way to the Ropalo list, and now strangely being brought to this specific moment to make Ballas appear even more like the victim than he attempted to portray himself to be during the Chimera prologue, solidifying the idea within the narrative that the Lotus was not to be trusted. And I think it was at this point a great many Tenno wrote the Lotus off, branded her an enemy and betrayer, and needed to be put down, Ballas's plans of deception paying off in full. Now the biggest question that has to be fully answered yet is, why does it appear that the Man on the Wall is helping Ballas? Was this a necessary step in order to end the war permanently? A way to test how pliable the Tenno were to alternate ideas on how to deal with the Lotus? And does this insinuate that he wants her dead? With the end of the new war, a brief nod to the larger, potentially cosmic battle still to come. Or perhaps worse, was the end of the new war part of his plan? Does Ballast yet live? His body, curiously missing at the end of the new war, reappearing sometime after in Duviri? Some say this is just Kalervo's manifestation playing out, but don't be surprised if Ballast doesn't make a return at some point in the future, potentially sooner than later. He's been consistently outthinking pretty much everyone he's encountered up to this point, and if the Lotus can be rescued from the void miraculously, his appearance after the new war most assuredly portends some greater power the Tenno will have to deal with at some point. And with that, dear friends, we will conclude Part 2. However, stay tuned for Part 3, where we will take a deeper look into Erra specifically, as well as the secret message we are soon to be sent. So I hope you all join me for that in the near future. But, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed Part 2 of this deep dive into the new war as a whole, and it got you thinking about just what else we've been lied to about, and by whom. What characters do you still trust in Warframe? At any rate, I hope you all have a wonderful day today, a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk at you all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.